Good afternoon, learners, and welcome to a new telematics session. My name is Mr. van der Berg, and to my left, I have Ms. Franch, and she will introduce herself during the course of this afternoon session. And today we will be focusing on language, paper 1, first additional language, paper 1. We know these are very extraordinary times and that you are in lockdown, and that some of you will have access to this live transmission and some of you will not have access to this transmission. Hopefully, those of you who do not have access, your teacher will be able to use this lesson as part of the resources for catching up when schools reopen and we go into a sort of normal state again. Ladies and gentlemen and learners, today we are focusing on you specifically. And this lesson is specifically for you to make sense of paper 1 and to utilize it for your improvement of your results and for improvement of your literary skills and language skills that you can apply at paper 2 and even at paper 3 specifically. So without any further ado, let us start with the paper 1. The first thing we will do is look at the statistics that we had for the November 2019 question paper. And let me remind you too that the lesson today will be focused around the November 2019 paper 1 first additional language. So teachers, if you are looking at this lesson, please find and use this paper as the basis for this lesson and the resource to be utilized in class so that the learners can then look at the science of the paper as they go along from question 1 to question 5. Now, the first thing we would like to look at are the statistics. And if you look at the screen, you will notice that the comprehension scored an average of 59%. Not too bad. We would love it to reach the 60%. The summary scored 65.5%, and this is now for the Western Cape. All these statistics are for the Western Cape. The advertisement scored 58.9%, which is an improvement on the previous year. And the cartoon scored 48%. Oops, sorry, this is jumping. My apologies there. Let me just quickly go. And the cartoon scored 48%, and the question 5 language editing section scored 39%. Now, as teachers, we normally think that the learners will score more at the question 5 editing section, but the statistics show otherwise. So we need these kind of sessions to address what we have. Right, for the instructions for the paper, we will always notice that they give us some guideline in terms of the time allocation for every section. Now, you have 3 sections and 5 questions. Section A will be your comprehension, and they indicate that you use the following time frame as a guideline, 50 minutes. The section B will only be the summary, and there's an indication to use 20 minutes for the completion of your summary. And section C comprises of 3 questions, namely question 3, the advertisement, question 4, the cartoon, and question 5, the language editing section. And you have 50 minutes to complete that. So time-wise, you need to be very careful and very punctual in terms of limiting yourself at certain stages to stop and to continue with the next section or question to ensure that you complete the question. If I go back to the statistics, you will notice that at question 1, you have 30,867 learners starting, and if you go to question 5, you have 20 fewer learners who completed the question 5. In other words, along the way, I think learners lose track of time, and then when they get to question 5, they rush through it to be able to complete the question, and in the process, they lose marks. So you need to pace yourself to be able to complete the question. Now, To start and to continue with the comprehension, we have also noted that learners do not score or they lose marks if they have to answer questions where they have to explain clauses or phrases where there are two ideas. And as per the explanation and the analysis at 1.2.1, and hopefully your teacher will now refer to this question paper and you will have the question in front of you when we make reference to 1.2.1, that candidates had to explain the two words hobby and living in the context of the question. I do have the question there and the answer, so just please be patient. At 1.2.2, one clause presented, but candidates had to explain the two key words in the clause, release and imagination, to score 2 marks. Now, it seems like you need to identify and underline words in the question to be able to know exactly what to address. So, let us look at question 1.2.1 as it appeared in the question paper. It starts with, refer to paragraph 2. In other words, the demand on you will be to only focus on paragraph 2. And the question coupled with this is 1.2.1. Explain the difference between doing something and then in inverted commas as a hobby and doing something for a living. So it's a clear indication what aspects you have to address to be able to score the 2 marks. Firstly,
Mr. van der Berg, can I just come in there quickly?
Yes, you may.
Learners, if you look at that, okay, you now need to understand that we can go to the deconstruction of that question. And how do we do that? We say, we must explain. That is our instructional verb. What must you do? You must explain. So that is your instructional verb. That's the first thing that you must do. The second thing you must do is you must know the content that you need to explain. And what is the content? The difference between doing something as a hobby and doing something for a living. And what is your limitation? Where must you look for your answer in paragraph 2? So the little trick I'm teaching you now, the deconstruction of a question, you can use this throughout your exam paper with each and every section of the language paper. So what is the first thing I'm going to repeat quickly? You are going to find your instructional verb, then you are going to look what your limitation is, and then you're going to look at your content. And then you can do that. You explain, that's what you need to do. Content, what must you explain? Difference between hobby, doing something for a living. Where must you look for the answer? Paragraph 2. Thank you, Mr. van der Berg.
Thank you, Ms. Branch. It is very important, added to that, it's very important that the construction of your answer is very important because you are going to please an examiner. We're dealing with the science of how to answer to ensure that you score the full 2 marks. So in the breaking up, and when we display the question, we would like to draw your attention to a few things. One being, try to write your answer, if it's a 2-marker, to construct 2 succinct, short sentences so that you can show the examiner, this is my answer to point number 1, and this is my answer to point number 2 to score the full 2 marks. And the answer is displayed as follows. When creative activities are pursued as a hobby, they are done for enjoyment. Now, learners, we do not expect of you to answer in exactly the same way, beautiful words, well-constructed words that you won't normally use. You can simplify your answer as much as possible as long as you address the content or link the content to what is requested or required in the answer. For example, if you say, when creative activities are pursued as a hobby, if you do a hobby, you do it for enjoyment. That would have also scored you the 1 mark. When creative activities are pursued for a living, if you, what's the question? Explain the difference between doing. If you do something for a living, you earn an income from them or you earn money from it. That would have also scored your 2 marks. So it's not necessary, despite the fact that we show you the answer as it is displayed in the memorandum of the National Senior Certificate, you need to construct your own answer in as simple as possible a way so that it makes sense to yourself, but more importantly, to the examiner who will be marking your script. That is what we are trying to address today, for you to make sense of your text and then constructing an answer so that it makes sense to the person who will be marking your script. Remember, at the end of the year, you are merely a number. You are not the person in class and Mrs. Franch's favorite learner at school. No, you are merely a number in a batch with a number at the front, and anybody who's sitting, any of the 116 markers sitting there can get your specific script and mark it, and it needs to be sensible. The answers need to make sense to whoever is marking your script. All right, allow me to continue. Yes?
One more thing. Grade 12, what you need to understand is that when you answer your question and you go back and you say, okay, this is the question, have I answered it? And your answer is yes, then you've done the right thing. If your answer is no, then you haven't. So the answer to the question there that we've just analyzed now is, 1, you're doing it for fun, or you're doing it to earn money. So if you had said those two things, 1, hobby means you're doing it for fun, or 2, you're doing it to earn money, there are 2 aspects to that answer. And does it answer the question? Explain the difference. Yes, it does. Very simply, but it does. So I can ask myself, right, does my answer work? It does. It is correct. So you can do the same thing. You can go and look at how you've responded to the question. And if that answers the question after you've done the deconstruction, then indeed, you will score your 2 marks.
Definitely, definitely. A further example would be at 1.2.2, where the learners had to answer, what does the writer mean by release our imagination? Now, that little clip there, release our imagination, had to be deconstructed by the learner to be able to score 2 marks. You had to provide an explanation of the word release, and then also an explanation of our imagination. Now, this won't be just a once-off in the November 2019 exam paper. You can expect these kind of questions where the examiner lifts a clause or a phrase from the text and asks you to explain it. This is a regular occurrence in almost every examination paper for the comprehension for EFL paper 1. So when we go to the answer, if we just can have a look at the answer, it is to express or set free, referring to release, our creative thoughts, ideas, equating to imagination. Notice that you would have been penalized if you use the word imagination in your answer. You had to provide an explanation or a paraphrasing of release in your own words, as well as imagination, for you to be able to score the full 2 marks. I am putting you now, learner, into the mind of the examiner at the end of the year so that you know exactly how to approach these questions. Now, let us continue and go on with the higher order questions. For example, I am going to skip these questions and I am going to continue to 1.10, which normally in the past would have been a 3-marker, but reduced to 2 marks now in the National Senior Certificate English First Additional Language paper. And the question begs as follows. Discuss whether the writer's reference to various studies, and I underlined it, makes the passage more convincing. You have to discuss, in other words, provide an opinion and further expand on it. What are you supposed to discuss? Whether the writer's reference to studies, various studies included in the text, makes the passage more convincing. All right? So, in the answer, in the construction of the answer, I'm going to remove that quickly. Sorry. I'm going to bring that in and just further explain quickly in terms of a little, not a formula, but you can use it as a guideline. At school, we ask the learners, we normally say, we're going to teach you how to pee. And they burst out laughing. No profanity intended here. The first one is, and I've explained this in a previous lesson, but now this is completely new. You make your point. You state your point in terms of what is requested in the question. Once you've stated your point, use the key word from your point and either add evidence from the text, or you can then further explain. Normally for a 2 marker, as for the first additional language question paper, we would actually ask of you to focus on the point and the explanation for 2 marks. All right? To focus on the point and the explanation. If you would like to add the evidence, use it as a separate sentence, and then that further enhances the explanation of what you are trying to state to the examiner. Try to do this as succinctly, if I say succinctly, as simplified as possible, so that the examiner can know exactly what you are stating in your answer. Now, a further clue, and this is when you are in the classroom. If your teacher should ask you such a higher order question, you try to organize your thoughts and ideas in the same way. What is the point I'm trying to make? And you don't babble and ramble on and on. State your point. Short sentence. Stop. Start a new sentence. Explain the key word in your point. And that will put you on track in terms of how you're going to construct your answer and answer your question in the examination, especially a higher order question. Let me go on to the answer. In the memorandum, it was stated, the use of the various studies lends authenticity to the information contained in the passage. Now, you don't need to use such a big word such as authenticity. You could state the use of the various studies makes the article more genuine or provides originality to the article. That's your point. How are you going to further explain? It adds credibility to the views of the writer. That almost sounds like a repetition, but it also provides a scientific basis, or it further strengthens the argument or the claims made in the passage, thereby convincing the reader. Are you with me? You made your point. Or the flip side is, the reference made to various studies are vague and may therefore not be credible and reliable. Point. Explanation. This will lead to the reader being skeptical about the findings of these studies. So what I'm trying to indicate to you here is a point is being made, and you have to further explain, and this, in your discussion, you have to further substantiate your point by providing an explanation, and no need for evidence from the text. But if you want to, add the evidence as a further enhancement of your argument in your discussion. All right? 1.11, exactly the same. But this is where you also need to be more focused on the title of the passage. Remember, they will always ask you whether the title of a passage is suitable. So whether your teacher is practicing with you any past question paper comprehension in class, always refer to the title of that comprehension and whether it is suitable, and you make your point, answer it by stating your point, further explain, or even providing proof from the text or evidence from the text. So the answer provided in the memorandum discuss the suitability of the suitability of the title, Get Creative, Get Better. And the answer says, the title is suitable because it is linked to the article, which is about how being creative can allow one to get better. Statement made, point made. Further explanation, the passage focuses on how engaging in creative activities can lead to a better quality of life, leading to one's physical and psychological well-being or healing. Now, learners, and there's always the alternative, the negative way of stating your answer. So you need to look, when you look at past question papers, always look at how these questions are being answered. It is also very important that for further hints, for answering the comprehension, I'm not even going to, I think Ms. Franch will bring in some hints in terms of the skimming, the scanning, what you need to do before you even start with the answering of the questions. My focus here is completely on how we can make it easy for ourselves to please an examiner, and also the science of how to answer the comprehension for you to be able to score the full marks at the different types of questions that you can expect in the comprehension. Ms. Franch, would you like to probably expand on those little tips just for a few minutes or 4 minutes?
12, we've gone a little bit over our time in terms of the comprehension, but bear in mind, you get a paper. So this is what you're going to be using. So you've got a paper in front of you. What do you do with it? A lot of us don't know. So you need to go and you open your paper. You've read your instructions. Now you get to your comprehension. What do you do? There are two things you can do. Some learners choose to read the comprehension first, and some choose to read the questions first. Okay, that's entirely up to you. But now you've got an idea of what the text is about. Then you go to, when you've read your questions once, you've read your text once. Now you have to go to the question, and you have to do what I've told you about deconstructing the question. Mr. van der Berg is going to make a note. Deconstructing the question just means that you identify your instructional verb, then you look at your content. So what must you talk about? And you look at your limitation. Which paragraph are you going to look at? And that's how you do it. Now you go. So question 1.1 will come from paragraph 1. What do? You do your deconstruction. Now you go to paragraph 1. Take your highlighter. The question paper belongs to you. Take your highlighter. Highlight the sentence in the question paper. Okay, that answers the question that you've been asked. Then you go and you simply put it into your own words, a simpler version of what is in the question paper. And make sure that you always adhere to the count, to the total. So if it's 2 marks, you will need to have 2 little bits of your answer in order for you to score the 2 marks. Is there something you'd like to add, Mr. van der Berg?
No, to conclude, remember that your comprehension consists of 2 parts. It's the prose text,
yes,
the paragraphs for 24 marks, and then you have a text B, a graphic for 6 marks. So you need to always look at graphics and ask yourself these questions, such as to look critically at the graphics and the message that's implied with these graphics. Without any further ado, we're going to go on to the summary now, and that I leave to Ms. Franch.
Okay, just a little bit about the graphics as well. You must remember that joins up with visual literacy, and that is a component of the paper all on its own. Am I right, Mr. van der Berg?
Correct.
So when we've got your little your text, the first part, the 24 marks, that you're going to read. But the visual literacy is something entirely different. That is when you look at a picture and you look at what information you are getting from the picture as opposed to the words. So that's just the last little bit of that. But I'm going to be doing the summary. And you can see the PowerPoint slide shows you what section B looks like. Can we go to that? There we go. And it says question 2, a good night's sleep is necessary for good health. This comes from the paper as well at the end of last year. Your summary must be written in point form. You must have 7 points. Most important, list 7 points on how to get a good night's sleep. Okay, now, what do we do when we get the summary? We've done the comprehension. Now we've gotten to the summary, okay? The first thing that we need to do is we need to read that summary. Once we've read the summary, we understand what it's about. Now let's go to the question. The question says, list 7 points. So that's one of the things. Tick that box. You must list 7 points. What must it be about? How to get a good night's sleep. Okay, so instructional verb, list. What must you list? 7 points on how to get a good night's sleep. And you need to have a word count at the end. So that's your limitation. You're not allowed to go over 70 words. Now, what do you do next? You are going to go and read the text. Once again, take your little highlighter and highlight the 7 sentences that you feel answers the question. So now you've got it, you've done that. Now, how are you going to check whether or not you have in fact answered the question? Remember, you've highlighted 7 things. The question says, how to get a good night's sleep. Does the hint that you've highlighted, does it say how to get a good night's sleep? So every time you highlight something, you ask yourself, is this answering the question? Because remember, you basically need to answer the same question 7 times. You need to give 7 different tips on how to get a good night's sleep. But every time the question is the same. How to get a good night's sleep. Does your answer does your response answer the question? And you simply need to do that 7 times, and you need to do it in your own words. So let's go over it again. You've read the summary. So what must you do now? You must list 7 points. It must be 70 words, and it must answer the question, how to get a good night's sleep. And you must have 7 little tips. Have you done that? Yes. Bob's your uncle, 10 marks. Mr. Van der Berg, would you like to add anything to that? I think I might have missed 1 or 2 things.
No, absolutely. I think a lot of, we've penalized quite a number of learners who did not draw a line through the rough draft of the summary. Yes. A lot of learners wrote the summary in the format as it appears in the memorandum of the NSC paper, with 2 columns, 1 for quotations and 1 for own words. And then the instruction to the marker would be, we always mark the first column, and that is the quotation column. And if you wrote your quotations there, it would have then been marked as 7 quotations. In other words, you would be penalized and you wouldn't get the additional 3 language marks to the 7 facts. So you have to ensure that you only write your 7 specific facts with regard to the answering of the question in the summary. Another tip for you would be to leave a line open between every sentence in your final draft. That makes it easier for the marking and the assessing of that, because the marking of the summary goes through almost 4 or 5 different types of assessments. Just for further explanation, the marker would be the red pen marker. That would be your first line of assessment. Then there would be a second level of assessment, the senior marker with green ink. Then there would be the deputy chief marker in orange ink. Then there would be the chief marker in pink ink. And then there would be the internal moderator in blue or black ink. And then there would be an external moderator in purple ink. So we need a bit of space in between. If, let's say, for example, your script is selected and it goes through the different levels of assessment, we just need that extra bit of spacing in between the different points. And also, it looks neater in terms of the presentation of your facts. There's not much to be said, yes.
Yeah, but another thing there is, if you look at your instructions, you are going to notice that they say 1 point per line. They're going to say to you, have 10 little words per sentence. Now, those are part of the instructions, grade 12. And when we mark, we are going to look at whether or not you have, in fact, heeded the instructions, which means, have you done what we've asked? Because if you haven't answered the question. So you need to look at your instructions and you need to take cognizance, because that is as important as the content of your answer. Have you done it in the way that we have requested? And Mr. Van der Berg marks paper 1, and that is why he's able to give you so many excellent tips in terms of how to answer this. So as much as we are giving you ideas, and I'm giving you ideas about how to read and how to answer and how to deconstruct, Mr. Van der Berg is there at the end of the day, and he's going to sit there and mark your papers, so he knows what they are looking for. So I advise you strongly, teachers and learners, take cognizance of the tips that we are giving you, because these things are not going to change anytime soon, and it will only benefit you if you know what to expect at the end of the year. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. To conclude with the summary, the instruction is always to use your own words, and the question always begs, when are these words my own words? And the tip to you is, if you insert a word, a new word, it's your own words. If you remove a word, it's your own words. If you change a few words and you create a singular phrase for those few words, it's your own words. If you substitute or you use a synonym for a different word or for a specific word, it's also your own words. So these things will be dealt with, and it will be taught to you, and it will be practiced with you in the classroom with your teacher when you do this now when you get back to school. Also remember that the majority of these summaries demand of you to provide instructions in terms of how to get a good night's sleep. In other words, the tone of your answers will be what they call the imperative form. In other words, you give an instruction or a command when you answer your questions. You will do this. You must do this. You have to get 8 hours sleep. You need to not eat a lot of meat, do not eat meat before you go to bed. Those types of, I'm just using that as an example because I'm thinking of myself now, but you need to think in terms of a command when you focus on the summary. And also, very much importantly, practice, practice, and practice your summary. Your teacher will be getting these PowerPoint slides, and you will be doing this in class once you return to school. So hopefully this will also enable you to push that 65% average up to as close as possible to 70%. It is very possible. You need to practice. Ms. Fransch, the advertisement?
Yeah. Okay, so Mr. van der Berg is going to concentrate on the more technical aspects in terms of the high order questions and whatnot. I am going to give you a little bit of insight into how an ad is put together so that you understand when you are asked how to answer. Okay, so you need to know each ad, it's visual literacy. Right? So what does that mean? It means that you have to look at the picture and you have to make sense of the picture. Okay, and also you need to understand that that ad was created for a particular audience. It is aimed at getting the attention of a particular group of people. Okay, so you need to know the audience, the target audience. Then there will be a slogan, there might be a logo. You need to be able to identify those. Okay, you need to know the target market who must buy the product. There might be a brand name. You should be able to identify that. And then what we do with advertising is we use persuasive techniques. Okay, but let's just start. There's a simple principle. It's called the AIDA principle. It's spelled A-I-D-A. Okay, and I'm sure that your teachers have told you about this. I'm just going to reiterate a little bit about that. So the A is for attention. The I, interest. D, desire. And A, action. What does that mean? When you look at an ad, any ad, whether it be print media, whether it be on TV, whether it be on a billboard, doesn't matter. If you look at that ad and it catches your attention, then you are now looking at it. Okay? So what is going to make you continue looking at the ad and reading whatever the text says or looking at the picture? What about that particular thing is going to hold your interest? Okay? So sometimes ads are for products in terms of it's for shoes, it's for pain medication, it's for this, it's for that. Sometimes it's not a product that it's selling. Maybe it's selling a holiday. Maybe it's selling an idea. So you need to be able to identify what are they trying to sell with this ad, because ultimately that's what advertising is about. It wants you to buy into an idea. Okay? So they will firstly get your attention. Now they'll hold your interest. The D for desire means that somehow you are now going to want to be a part of what you are seeing in this ad. So if it's a holiday that they are advertising, for example, okay, imagine they've got beautiful, I'm pro beach holidays, so mine is always going to be the ocean. It's always going to be blue skies and those types of things. So I'm imagining that. Okay, I'm closing my eyes, I'm imagining that. If I see a picture like that, immediately my attention is drawn. Okay, and if I see, for example, they say, they speak about it being discounted. Now they've got my interest because, oh, I'd like to go on this holiday and I'd like to pay less money. Desire, now they're going to speak to what's going to make the holiday work for me. Okay, and they speak about how much better I'm going to feel and how much more beautiful I'll be after the holiday and how good it's going to be for me. So they are going to appeal to your sense of self, like, oh my word, I'm going to benefit from this. Action, now they say it's on special. And I go and I book that holiday and Bob's your uncle works for me. So that's how advertising works. And those are the principles that they use when they do an ad. Mr. van der Berg, can we just go over to the higher order questions that you've mentioned in the paper?
Yes, the question paper, or in the question paper, question number 3.7 was one of the higher order questions, but the one specifically that you can expect, and the question begs, does this advertisement succeed in convincing the reader to purchase the advertised product? Substantiate your answer. You see, now once more, we're going to ask of you to follow the PEE or the PE principle. What is the point you are making in terms of how this advertisement attracts you to purchase this product? And then furthermore, the E will be the further explanation or even evidence from the advertisement to show that this is what is attracting me, or that this is what attracted my attention to be able to buy this product and wanting to buy this product based on the principles that Ms. Frange mentioned of attention, interest, desire, and the action from the consumer to want to buy this product. Now, in that lies the answer of the answering, or in that lies the concept of answering the higher order questions. For example, the suggestion is that if you have Kellogg's for breakfast, you will achieve greatness. That's the point I am making. Further explanation, this advertisement supports the idea that if you want to be productive and achieve success, now learners, this is now based on the graphics in the advertisement. You must start your day with a good breakfast. Therefore, you are likely to be influenced to purchase this product. So the learner used the graphics as well, in other words, the visual clues, as well as the wording, the verbal clues, to be able to construct the answer and further explain the initial statement being made in the answering of that question. And you can follow that same principle for all your higher order questions. A further aspect that I would like to draw the attention to is the target, do more exercises. In actual fact, I'm going to skip this slide, and I would like to go to this one. Know these words and phrases for advertising. Who, or even what, is your target audience? Does the headline of the advertisement state something that will attract your attention? Or how is it formatted to attract your attention? What images are there in the advertisement to draw your attention? Does this advertisement or this product have a slogan or a logo? Is the logo attractive? In other words, if I should draw your attention, what is the logo for the Adidas brand or the Nike brand? Answer that yourself. Yes, you now see it in your mind, and it is a brilliant, simply constructed logo, but you'll recognize it everywhere and anywhere you go. What is the product about? Who is the target market? Is this aimed at young people? Is this aimed at adults? Is this aimed at pet owners? Is this aimed at people who enjoy sweet stuff? Who is this target? Who is this specific product aimed at? So you need to have an analysis of the product as well as the advertisement. Once you sit with the question paper and quickly draw and make your own annotations and notes on the question paper, and that will assist you in terms of answering the different types of questions.
Just on that as well, what you guys tend to do sometimes, grade 12, and this is what I've discovered, is you say I. Now, these questions are not aimed at you. It's not a personal response, okay? You need to give your opinion based on what you are seeing in the text or what you are seeing in the image. And then you have to base your response on that. Also, understand that visual literacy, there are two aspects. Literacy means reading and understanding, but visual means what you see. Okay? So, are you able to take that ad and read every single thing that is said there, whether it be words or pictures? Okay? And that is the important thing that you need to know. You need to be able to, like Mr. van der Berg, he mentioned a few things, the slogan, the logo, the imagery, the headline, all of those things. So you need to be able to put that together. Okay? You need to read all of that, see it, and then be able to understand it and make meaning of both the words and the pictures and put it together, because that is what visual literacy is. That basically equates to writing an essay in paper 3 when you have to write based on a visual stimulus. It's the same thing. You have to write an essay based on a picture that you are seeing. In advertising and cartoons that Mr. van der Berg is going to cover next, it is the same thing. What meaning are we able to make from looking at the pictures and the words in front of us? Okay, and when we answer our questions, it must be based on what we are seeing there and who the target audience is. Because we are not necessarily always the target audience, are we? No, we're not. So we must answer based on who the ad was in fact written for. Thank you.
With reference to the cartoon, I'm not going to go through too much of the cartoon, but I'm going to focus on the whole purpose of the cartoon, and that is to create humor. And this is one of the questions that the learners struggle to answer persuasively. Now, the question that we had in the examination was the one as on the slide. Do you think the cartoonist succeeds in creating humor in frame 6? Substantiate your answer. Now, the answer provided in the NSC memorandum had been as follows. In frames 1 to 5, the woman displays signs of forgetfulness. However, in frame 6, her memory is astute when she remembers that Jeremy had not returned her change. Now, these are words that you would, as a first additional language learner, you would not use in everyday conversation words such as astute or even a detailed recollection as further in the explanation. You need to simplify these answers, and you need to ensure that you are able to identify the intended humor by the cartoonist. By default, all cartoons are supposed to provide a light-hearted moment, whether it is when you read the newspaper, whether you read a magazine, or even in other forms of media, such as even on the social media. Nowadays, you have the memes, which could also be interpreted sometimes as cartoons. But the format of the cartoon is very specific. Let me just go back to the cartoon. It is in a display of a hand-drawn cartoon, and it is indicated frame by frame by the cartoonist. Now, in this case, you have two characters in the cartoon, and the intended humor is captured when the woman provides a completely contrasting position. In the first frame, she's completely forgetful. She does not even remember where her glasses are when it's situated on top of her head. But in the last frame, she can remember that her son still owes her change and money when she sent him to the shop the previous week. And can't you relate to that? Your mother sends you to the shop 4 days ago, and 4 days after she says, don't you still owe me money of the bread that you bought 4 days ago? And you think, how on earth does this woman do this? She doesn't even remember where she leaves her glasses or a pen or even her cell phone, because I have to constantly look for it, or even the remote control of the TV. But yet she remembers about her change of the previous week. Yes, you can relate to that. All right. So the intended humor is there as drawn by the cartoonist. Let me just continue and just indicate to the cartoon hints. Remember, you have to identify this when you do the cartoons in the question paper. Body language of characters, verbal communication, setting, scale, stereotype and caricatures. Your teacher will further explain that to you. What is a caricature? As a slight example, how Zapiro, the cartoonist, draws Jacob Zuma with a elongated head. He enhances the current shape of Jacob Zuma's head, and he elongates and he puts a shower head on top for reasons known to him and to us as well. You have speech bubbles and thought bubbles, as well as the size of font and exclamation marks and punctuation marks, and obviously you have to identify the intended humor. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going on to question 5, the editing section, where you scored the lowest 39%.
Oh, wow. Before we go to the editing section, there's just one thing that I'd like to mention in terms of what makes a cartoon funny. So cartoons are supposed to be funny, right? So it's either going to be satire, caricature, or stereotypes. Identify what it is, okay, and then from there go. Know that you need to know your characters. You need to know that it comes from a frame. You need to know when it's a speech bubble. You need to know when it's a thought bubble. Those types of things are the most basics that you need to know. So make sure that you go and you familiarize yourself with that. Let's move to question 5, Mr. Van der Berg.
Question 5,
Wow.
question 5, language, grammar, editing section, and you do these exercises in class, and when it comes to the end of the year, once more, I'm urging you to pace yourself so that you have enough time to be able to answer these questions. Now, in terms of identifying and analyzing the science of the question 5, year on year, we almost see the exact same format appearing in the question paper in terms of question 5. And these formats, or this format for question 5, could be as follows for the end of November 2020 as well. Correct the single error, 4 marks, and I just popped in an example there on the right-hand side. Antonyms, it could be a synonym, it could be antonym. Active to passive voice for 2 marks, that you can expect year on year. Negative form for 1 mark. Rewrite in a different tense. In this question paper, you had to write in the future tense. Acronyms, abbreviation, etc. An acronym is basically an abbreviation that you can use as a different word. For example, in this current situation that we find in COVID-19. What does COVID stand for? It is coronavirus disease, and you can use that as a separate word as well. COVID, in other words, it now becomes an acronym and not an abbreviation, right? You also have reported speech, direct and reported speech. You have to rewrite a sentence into the reported speech for 3 marks. It's normally, in the case of 3 marks, it's normally 2 changes. And the 3rd mark will be allocated if you have if you remove all the punctuation and your sentence is grammatically correct as well, right? And then combine sentences for 1 mark. You also have a tag question. Ma'am, would you like to just add to the tag question? We spoke about this before we started with our transmission.
I've noticed that a lot of learners struggle with this. Okay, so when we have a tag question, guys, the simplest for me way to explain to my learners is this. If your statement is positive, your tag will be negative. Let me give an example. I am loud. Positive statement. If I were to make it into a question by adding a tag, which is how your question will be phrased, it will be, I am loud, aren't I? Negative tag. So when your verb is positive, I am loud, that's your positive. You have to change it into a tag question or a question by adding a tag. The tag that you add invariably will be negative. Aren't I? I'm loud, aren't I? But if your initial statement is negative, if it's negative, then your tag will be positive. An example, Mr. Van der Berg, can you think of one?
I am not loud, am I?
Beautiful. Did you see that, grade 12? So if your statement is negative, your tag is positive. Please remember that you are taking a statement and you are adding a tag and making a question out of it. And what is the punctuation that we add when we create a question? A question mark. It is vital. So it's not going to help if you don't put your question mark there and you just add your little tag. You need to put your question mark there. If it's not already there, you need to put it there to score your 1 mark. It's only 1 mark, but just think how much closer that's going to take you to passing that paper.
Absolutely. Now, to return to the science of the paper, you also had parts of speech for 2 marks, where you had 2 separate words or underlined words in a sentence, and you had to provide the parts of speech. Now, learners, you need to know that all these have been coming along since grade 8. When you entered high school, your teachers have been drilling you on these language matters. And it boils down, at the end of the year, it boils down to you being able to complete successfully in the allocated time. Right. What other aspects did we have? We also had concord, where you had to state the agreement between subject and verb and identify or change a verb to ensure that it is grammatically correct in the stated sentence. Also, degrees of comparison, good, better, best as an example, and they will give you a similar word, or they will put a word in brackets, and you will have to provide the correct degree of comparison as it is presented in the stipulated question in the question paper. So you need to read carefully as well. And then homonyms or a homophone. And what is the difference? A homonym, let me get it right. A homonym is if you have words that are spelled exactly the same, but you have two different meanings. For example, if I could state it in a sentence, ball to play with, and my matric ball, correctly, exactly spelled exactly the same way, but two completely different concepts when it comes to providing it in different sentences. So these need to be practiced as well, and you need to be able to do this on a regular basis. And I would recommend that your teachers just off the cuff ask you these questions so that you can get used to it in terms of what are homonyms and what are homophones. Homophones being obviously if you have two words that are pronounced or
they sound the same.
Yeah, but spelled differently.
Yeah.
Right? So you need to practice this on a regular basis.
I'd just like to come in there as well and say that if you look at correcting the single error, homonym, concord, those types of things can be included in those first 4 marks. So it's very important that you remember that all of these things that Mr. Van der Berg has just mentioned can actually come into correcting the single error. There's 4 marks in question 5. And the first 4 marks will be it will be an A, B, C, D. And those can be spelling errors, it can be homonyms, it can be homophones, it can be concord. So it might not necessarily just be the type of error that you think. So you need to look closely and understand that it can be any of those things. Am I right?
Absolutely, absolutely. Very importantly for you is to have a command of English to be able to grasp the concepts and also the grammatical concepts within question 5. The more you read English, be it may comics, be it may magazines, be it may articles even on social media, but the more you associate and read and understand and grasp English, the better it will be for you to make sense of what is asked in question 5. The more technical aspects will be done in class, for example, how to do the direct and reported speech, how to do the active to passive voice, how to do the tag question. These things will be done in class, but it will become so much easier the more you are exposed to English.
Yeah, there's just one thing I'd like to mention, and that I've noticed kids make the mistake, negative form. She is wearing a blue dress, negative form. She is wearing a pink dress. That's not what you must do. You must make the sentence from positive to negative. She is wearing a blue dress. She is not wearing a blue dress. It's not about changing, it's not about the antonym or the opposite, about the girl and the boy or the pink and the blue. It's about making the sentence negative. She is doing something. Now, she is not doing that thing. That's what it means to make it into the negative form. And I've noticed that learners sometimes do that. I don't know, Mr. Van der Berg, if you've seen that, but they tend to put in the antonym as opposed to making it a negative form.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You need to practice this. You need to identify in which tense the sentence is, if it's in the past tense, did not. All those little nuances and little intricacies and technical aspects with the negative form, that needs to be practiced. And also, just in conclusion, do remedial work after every exercise and do your corrections. If you are going to refer to past question papers, make sure that you also know how the questions are answered, and study the trends of the past question papers as we indicated to you, and obviously read as much English as possible. In conclusion, ladies and gentlemen and learners, in these uncertain times, I included a little tweet that I got, or it was copied from a tweet, and it was an indication of a parent in Australia, and this lady said, to all those parents trying desperately to do learning at home, I had a parent tell me this week, I missed 4 years of school in Bosnia during the war. 4 whole years with a war happening. I came to Australia at age 13 with no English and no schooling since I was 8. I'm 33 and I have a university degree and a very good career. The kids will be fine. Don't sweat it. Every kid in the world is in the same boat at this moment in time. They aren't missing out and they aren't in a war zone. Chill, your language. Their teachers are doing the best they can. You are doing the best you can. They are children. What they want is to feel safe and loved. And I suppose this is to all our parents and our teachers who are also parents out there, and to you as learners. Make use of this opportunity to think just further than lying with your phone in bed. If you want to go through your work, go through your work. If you have it available. If you want to be outside, be productive. Although not outside mixing with friends, outside of your house or the space that you occupy. Start your own little garden, and if it's limited space that you have, even in an old coffee can, you can start something. Think out of the box. Put your ideas on paper and see, once we return to a new normal, if you are able to do something about this.
Yeah.
From my side, ladies and gentlemen, learners, stay positive. Wash your hands regularly if you are able to do so. Sanitize.
Okay.
And make sure that you stay safe and at home.
Guys, COVID-19, unprecedented times. We are part of history. Live the moment. Be safe. Thanks for listening.
Thank you. And bye.
Bye-bye.